Welcome to Kicking It Local, the podcast all about the football community in South Australia. I'm your host, Johnny Kecko, and Macron Sports Hub Adelaide are ready to provide your club, academy or organisation with all its teamwear needs. For inquiries or online shopping, head to macronstoreadelaide.com.au. And the World Cup, the Women's World Cup in 2023, hosted by Australia and New Zealand. What a huge occasion it was here in our country, in our state, South Australia, and I'm very excited to be joined once again by Christian Marchetti and Antonis Pagonis to talk about the experiences of being a part of the media in this big occasion and big event in this country. Boys, thank you for joining me, and what a whirlwind it's been.
Good to be here. There's plenty to talk about because what a
relieved to be here.
I'm breathing. But what a month of not just football, of life.
Yeah,
that was.
It was good. We went on a couple of trips interstate together. You went to the very first game.
Yeah.
Christian, it's how was that for you?
Yeah. So I went for a week. There was a football writers festival on before that. So kind of a whole week I went. It was just me, and by like the fourth day, particularly after the festival was over, like I started to honestly feel like I was like a full-time journalist, working for a week interstate. So that was actually really cool. I did a few stories, covered the Matildas Island game. And just like, me and Antonis have had so many of these moments, and some of the other guys at Front Page Footall as well, who have been at just attending games, just people that you see, who a lot of people in the broader Australian sports community, just think, oh, well, that's just a journalist, whatever. But we see like, oh, Vince Rigari, oh my God. Like, So
I had that experience as well.
Yeah,
It was good at a press conference. And I had Adam Peacock behind me, but we'll go into that a bit later. But let's talk about this big moment of the World Cup coming here. I think we all looked at it as what it's going to do for the game, but I will be honest, I didn't think of what it was going to do for people involved in the game in other areas, including the volunteers, including people that got jobs, that have full-time jobs, but took up the opportunity to work for the World Cup, but also in the media. I was hoping I would get media accreditation, not really thinking I would, but then I ended up getting it, and great experience. But for you boys, leading into it, what do you think about the World Cup coming here? Did you have that idea of what it was going to do for people in media like us?
Yeah, look, coming into it, I kept saying like you're not gonna know what's it. It's gonna be huge.
Yeah.
But even like living it outgrew my expectations as well. I applied the accreditation as if you don't buy a ticket, you don't win the raffle. And I was overjoyed to wake up one day at 6 a.m. and see that email. I can't tell you my emotions, but it's just amazing. Not just for us, but for people that know how much are into football, to get jobs, to get those experiences. But for a month, Australia was the center of the football universe.
Yeah.
Everything went in and out of Australia. And I'm sure we'll talk about Adelaide in a minute and what we got. But it's just, I can't find the words to describe just how special this was for everyone that has just suffered so long due to many different factors with football in this country. It was our month. For every single day of that month, it was football, and no one could do anything about it. And it's just something that I reckon we'll look back for years and just think like, what a time that was.
Absolutely. How'd you find out that you got the media accreditation?
Yeah,
Christian?
just before that, just to add on to that, like what was really very humbling to see was just a lot of people, a lot of journalists, freelance journalists who cover, Australian football or independents like us, same sort of thing, actually being able to be full-time football journalists for a month. Because their organisation saw how big the tournament was and went, well, you're going to cover every game, or if you're in Adelaide, you're going to cover every Adelaide game. So that was awesome. The accreditation, I'm lucky I got a few connections which helped me with that, and whatnot. But to be honest, like Antonis said, you're very surprised at how much access we're actually able to get, really, and also, basically, I think it was only one game where we didn't have like an actual desk and a monitor to
You
write
sat
and
next to
watch
me,
the-
that's right.
And
Yeah,
that was very understandable when you consider
Oh.
just how many people China and England brought to cover,
Mm.
which just shows you how big the game.
Well, China had about 400 media with them.
Which shows you how big the women's game has become. Because if you remember, I'm not sure if you were in that press conference, Christian.
Oh,
but
was
we
with you.
were,
That was the
when
very first one I
Tamira's
attended.
Brazil's left
Yep.
back Tamira said, for this similar press conference, same situation in France 4 years before, there was one journalist in the room, and we were shoulder to shoulder packed in there. Just shows you how massive
I remember.
it was.
I don't know if you remember this because that was my first time ever attending any
I remember you mentioned it.
press conference ever. So I remember. I look back at it now, and it's like I was a little kid because I remember looking at you and elbowing you while you're trying to do your notes. I'm like, Antonis, we're at a World Cup press conference. I was like freaking out because it was a great experience. I never thought in my life I would be involved there because you guys you were through in the Sanctum, was it? Or in Front Page Football?
Yeah, for the World Cup. It was in the Sanctum,
Yeah, and you were Front Page Football.
It's actually through FTBL.
Okay.
Yeah. Which is a site I do some freelance work for too. But for me, it was more seeing like actually big journos like there.
Yeah.
Like, you know, for example, an interesting one was the France Morocco game. And there were two people there so Julien Laurent, who's like a massive...
Actually, I do remember,
Yeah, who's ESPN journalist, but he covers the Premier League. He's French, and he covers a lot to do with English football and stuff. And like he was like, you know, there, like we're in the media center, and he's like, you know, a couple seats over from me, and you know that's massive. Another one was Michael Cox, who I really like as a writer because he does a lot of tactical analysis, which I was trying to do for the World Cup with a lot of the games that I saw. And he's a senior writer for The Athletic UK, which is one of the more prominent for football worldwide. And I remember he was sitting right in front of me, and he asked Hervenard a tactical question or something. Before he did, he's like, "Yeah, Michael Cox," and I'm like, "Oh my god, that's Michael Cox! Like that's massive." Funnily enough, he didn't know who either of them were. So when I said to
I
him,
figured out when you gave me the Twitter handle of Michael Cox, I'm like, oh
yeah. So just like little things like that.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, wow, like
It was
you know,
cool.
share a room with those guys.
And just another thing, it's just the whole experience. Like I know with the A-League, you just walk in, you just sit and you just do your thing. With this one,
but that, you know, it's like that now because you've been to quite a few.
Yeah.
When I first went to A-League press conferences, we spoke about this when I was here last time, and it was like, oh, this is so cool. This is so cool. So yeah,
even like my first A-League press conference was like, what's happening here? But with this one here, we had to scan in, scan out the stadium. We had to go get our tickets printed
It's
from
just a whole
an
different
actual
level.
media center that exists there with like 100 odd seats. Then we had our desks in the whole media section.
Mm-hmm.
Then we had the mix zone, which you took part in as well in the press conference.
Well,
and we were out at midnight, you know?
Yeah.
Like it was just such an
that
experience to do
that
it
part
properly.
of it was great.
Yeah. let's talk about
It's just the experience.
the mix zone is a different experience because when I was applying for it, I had no idea what a mix zone was. I had to research it, and I thought, the mix zone is where the players, as soon as they walk off the pitch, they go straight through this area where they go talk to the media first that hold the rights. So that would have been Optus Sport and the likes. They got the best cameras, the best lighting. Then they come to us. Then they come to my area first and on rights. So I was doing it for radio for Triple M. Came to me. Then they come to you guys, and that's where sometimes with China and all that they all swarm. But I remember that area there. We were all in our own sections, but. Depending on the game as well, it was like a tug of war. You had to push to get through. I remember, I think it was Panama walking past, people leaning in front of me trying to get interviews.
Yep.
But the hardest thing was trying to work out who spoke English. Because, especially with the French and all that, they only had like one or two in the team that would be happy to do an interview.
And I'm sure you experienced that as well in Sydney with the Matildas, but the Matildas made our games, and our games were packed as. It made the Matilda one look like, it made our games look like nothing.
Yep.
I think I've got that picture of Courtney Vine after scoring the winning penalty in Brisbane when I went for that one.
Yep.
I was trying to record, and I'm like, you know what? There's all these journalists here. I'm sure I can grab the recording. I just took a step back, and I'm like, this looks like a Renaissance painting with a million things going on.
It was
so
beautiful.
just got my camera, and I got the picture, and I'm like, isn't this special?
Yeah, it was.
You know, this is, a woman that's talked about her struggles with imposter syndrome, and she's just scored, what was it, the 9th or 10th penalty for her country to advance the semi-finals of a World Cup, just being crowded by a sea of Aussie media. So for me, that's just one of the moments I just look back to. I'm just like, my God, that's special.
Like, those moments are where you really see, like, that's like where you're really in the thick of like competitive kind of journalism, right? Like, you know, it's like everyone's kind of launching in, trying to get, you know, their grab, their little quote. So, again, interesting because, you know, it's not like we have, you know, the same sort of competition every week. When we're going A-League games. So,
Well, the good thing with you guys, I was not lucky enough to get into the semi-final, final, or any Matildas after press conferences or mixed zones. So I had to apply for those. But because non-rights, obviously, not as easy as the press, which is, you guys use the audio to transcribe it. But I had to take a bus to Melbourne so I can get there a day early so I could attend the match day -1. And that for me, that was the only Matildas thing I attended as
Matildas Canada?
Matildas Canada game. Tony Gustafsson was copping it from the media at that point. It was under fire.
I didn't say anything.
Yeah. But having Adam Peacock behind me and then Simon Hill, Tao Pellizzari and the likes all in this room together, it was jam-packed. It was a great experience. I never thought, I think I messaged one of you or both of you maybe during that period. I'm like, I can't believe I'm here. I don't feel like I should be here. But it was something that's cool. And I think it's interesting.
You don't often see, like, we're very segregated. It's like us in South Australia, them in Victoria, them in New South Wales. But for a month, this is Australia. It's not, you're not covering Adelaide United and Sydney FC and Melbourne Victory. You are covering Australia's team. And everyone's covering Australia's team. So just to be and share that experience with everyone. Like I speak about in the Matildas games I covered. I was next to Vince Regari for one of them. I was next to Texie Smith and Sam Lewis for another one. And I was just thinking, like, you just have to look around them. I was like, this is real. Like, I am covering a home World Cup next to people who I take time out of my day to read their stuff. And I'm writing my stuff right now next to them. It's next level.
One thing I want to mention about Simon Hill as well is he's a nice guy. Had a moment he asked me what I did, and I told him about the NPL in South Australia, and he started asking questions about it with like real intrigue. Having a moment to be able to talk to people like that, I never thought I would have it. But what about you, Christian? How do you find those interactions?
I didn't. I mean, look, at the end of the day, you know, I've spoken about this before. I'm a bit of an introverted personality, and I'm 21 years old, you know, traveling for a week. And now I've got, you know, worldwide and some of the best Australian football journalists in the same room in this huge media center. So I didn't really talk to many people, I'll be honest. I was kind of like stayed in my own lane, sort of thing. But what's really interesting, you mentioned like with Simon Hill and how, you know, he was really interested to listen to what you're saying, but just in general, like, and I'm sure Antonis can talk maybe more about this, because he spoke to a few more people, but like, it's great how, you know, other, you know, as a journalist kind of network in Australian football, you know, we do get around each other. We have to do that. You know, that's really important. You know, like, you know, let me help you out with this. Or, that's really interesting. Yeah, I'll read your story. Like, you know, and things like that is really important. So I'm sure you could probably expand on that.
I was very, very lucky enough to be at for me, the two best Matildas games. Matildas Canada, Matildas France. I can die happy right now. But like the first one against Canada, I just went to my seat early just to absorb it. And I see Vince Regari coming up the stairs. I was like, I wonder where he's sitting. And they come and place him right next to me. I'm like, oh my God.
Oh, that was Canada game, wasn't it? Yes, I remember that one.
And then, I just, you know, when you see someone that obviously you haven't met before, but you're like, I told you before that I've basically grown up reading your stories, reading your coverage of the league. I was like, nice to meet you, Vince. I'd love to meet you. You're a big fan. And it's kind of like, I wish it was under better circumstances because it was right after the Nigeria game. I'm like, true. But just speaking to him, getting to know him, and then in Brisbane, seeing him again. So, hey, bro, how are you? So it's just a very nice moment. And the other big thing I want to say is just some people that are putting so much time and effort into not just football, Australian football, but women's football. Like Sam Lewis, like Marissa Ladanek, like
Anna Harrington.
Sorry, I don't know why I blanked there. I heard Anna in my head. Like Anna Harrington. seeing them and how they felt and how they celebrated after results like the Canada game, which meant we're going through the next stage of a home World Cup, after the France game, which is the moment where we go the furthest ever. Just seeing that pure emotion. These are professionals, and just seeing them in tears of joy and how they're celebrating and how much that means for them, I just can't describe it. I'm just like, your heart's so full at that moment because you're just like, my God, what a world.
Yeah.
Like, what we are having a home World Cup. You've seen so many teams bomb out of a home World Cup, stuffing up their big moment. And we are here having our biggest moments ever. And these people that have put in so much time and effort, despite the fact that maybe the publications don't prioritize this, maybe the general viewership or readers of that website don't. This is what you're covering for a whole month, and it's the priority, and it delivers. I just can't put this into words. It's surreal.
But all those things that you mentioned go into why the emotion is so like raw and so deep, right? Like, like someone like Sam Lewis, has been banging the drum for women's football for so long. But then there's also so much at stake with the World Cup because, you're trying to be unbiased as a journalist and report on what you see. But at the same time, she's probably thinking like, oh my God, what if it's a Canada game, for example? What if we get knocked out here?
Yeah.
Like, it's a disaster. Like, you know what I mean?
I know the stress that was going into that game as well. Seeing the media as how stressed they were.
100%.
I was a little bit.
So it's hard not to let your...
It's also that at that moment, because usually, if something goes wrong, you're kind of like the person that's screaming, this should change. But during that moment, it's you are covering, you are scrutinizing it, and everyone is getting behind it because it is the story. You saw with the final, with the England game, what was it, 60% of the nation was watching it. People are invested, people care, and it's not, unfortunately, it's not a moment we've always had.
No. But I won't name names because I spoke to a lot of people. But the day before that game, I was telling someone in the media area about how I didn't get the mix zone for that game. I was disappointed, and they were like, "Don't worry, you're not missing much. You're not going to be there for when we lose." Like everyone was like, just trying to get ready for the fact that we thought we were going to get knocked out. And then I saw your footage because I wasn't up there. I was in the crowd as a fan for that game. But seeing the reactions there with the relief. From everyone.
Tell you what, I was not planning on going to watch Matilda's Canada. I thought after the Nigeria game, I just thought I really want to watch Matilda's home World Cup.
Yep.
And if I can't make it here, I might not get to watch them.
Yep.
So to go there and for me, I had a feeling I'm not about losing, but not making it through.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I just have to watch my country in the home World Cup.
Yep, you have to.
And to have that game, like we could have scored 8 that day. Yeah. I'm like, is this the same team I just watched a few days ago? So, yeah.
So it was so good to see them there. I bought tickets to the semi-final and grand final, which is, I had the hope that I was going to see them in the semi-final and grand final Matildas. But I think I was almost like you where I thought I need to see him before the end of the group stages just in case. That's why I went to Melbourne for that game.
We had the same idea.
Yeah. But then when they won, I'm like, I might see him in the semi as well, which was cool. But what was it like for me being there? That's my second Matildas game. I saw him once in Adelaide in a friendly Hamish Stadium. But seeing him at a World Cup, that feeling was incredible. What about for you two?
There's nothing like a football World Cup. Again, when we talk about basketball, not every country is around basketball. When you talk about something like netball, cricket, only a few countries are prominent in that sport. What I say about football World Cup is every country at some point tried to be one of the 32 teams.
Yep.
Everyone's invested. Everyone cares.
Yep.
And when everyone cares, in Australia, we're very good at bandwagoning.
Yep.
I'm sure we've all noticed. And people can
11 million on board.
Yep. So people can bandwagon a good story. And with the Matildas, it was about 24 good stories out there. And people got around them. Hope Caroline Wilson kept up with that as well because there were a lot of good stories. But despite the point, people got around it. People really got around, which is why a comment like that really upset me because there's so much great coverage of this team.
There was, and in the lead up to as well.
But that's what causes people to care, okay? Anyone can go out and kick a football. Why should we care about you?
Yeah.
In that penalty shootout against France, every time a player went up, I had the great joy of, it'd be a great moment for her. And then a great feeling of doom. It was like, what if Sam Kerr misses another penalty in a big moment?
Yeah.
I'm thinking, what if Steph Curley's been so great with penalties. What if she misses here? Courtney Vine, you know her imposter syndrome stuff. What if she misses here? Because of those stories, we care more, we are attached more. And it's not just me or you saying it. A whole country's proof. A whole country got behind this. So for me, just seeing people care about our sport, people care about our stories. Again, I just can't describe it. It was just like living in a different world, one that really resembles our world for a month.
Yeah. What about you? What was your feeling being in the stadium with all those fans around there? And you were probably in the media area for most of it, but what did that feel like for you?
Yeah, just one thing, just to go back on his comment about Caroline Wilson and stuff. What really annoys me, seriously, is not to get too ranty, but like someone like Sam Lewis, who, by the way, works for the same organization that Caroline Wilson was saying those comments on ABC. And she's been writing stories about this team for years. And it's like, just because you're ignorant and you don't want to go and look for it, don't have a go, right? So it's very frustrating because I think there's a lot of, I think he's sitting right next to me is a great example.
Antonis,
Great stories, right? All the time. But,
Big thumbs up from Antonis there for those listening.
Yeah. But, it's like, well, you have to look for it. But if you really care, like you say you do, and you're trying to, make opinions about it, well, read the story. So
absolutely,
that was one thing that was a little bit annoying. Because the Island game was the only Matildas game I saw up close. When it comes with Australian national teams, I say this all the time. So, like, the national anthem, for me, Australian national anthem is not a big thing for me. But when Socceroos or Matildas game, I'm standing up, hands on my heart. And the Matildas Island game, like, there was very, very shallow tears as well at the start when I'm standing up. Because it's just like... you actually, the anthem's playing and you're looking around the stadium and it's like, oh my God, there's actually like 75,000 people in here singing this anthem.
Yeah.
Like that just doesn't happen with us. Like this isn't, us, us as Australian football community. So, yeah.
I always go back to that. And if I'm sure you're on the device right now, you can press pause and go watch this. Australia-Uruguay, that Uruguay game. That, for me, I wasn't there, obviously I was in Greece, living in Greece. That's the loudest I've ever heard an Australian national anthem being sang.
Yep.
And you could see the passion around it. And that's why I talk about football. Everyone's kicked a football at one point in their life. There is a tiny bit of you that cares, as much as you don't want to share it. You cannot help but get behind it when your team plays. And really, the Matildas right now, and I reckon for the rest of our lifetimes, are Australia's team.
Yep.
Australia's national team. Doesn't matter what else you are, that is our national team.
Yeah.
Because a whole generation of people now has very, very strong emotions attached to this brand, to these players, to these stories. You can't replicate seeing your heroes play a couple of kilometers away from your house.
Yeah.
You can't replicate flying across your own country to watch your heroes play on home soil. It's next level. And whatever these girls do from now on, they're going to be in the news because they were our Matildas, our World Cup Matildas. And for me, that's special.
Yeah, it is special. To saying it's not special, I went to one game where they lost. You guys were never in a stadium when they lost, but it's you're lucky, yeah.
So the 2 games I went to?
But I got to say, it showed something for me because the kids sitting right behind me, absolute tears, running down their face. They were upset when England scored that final goal to put the nail in the coffin for our grand final chances, our final chances. And that, for me, was sad to watch. But also, in a weird way, made me feel happy because the Matildas have strung a chord with them. And seeing that was good because I never thought that anyone would be that emotionally attached to our national teams in that kind of way at that age, at like I think 8-9 years old.
Yeah, I don't want to rain on this parade too much, and I know he's going to talk about more. But when I see stuff like that, I totally agree. I go, that's fantastic. What I worry about is, okay, so after this, like, what are you going to be doing?
Yeah.
Are you still going to be watching this?
I think they will be because the parents were all into it as well.
I think so. I think
the ones I saw especially, their parents were hugging them. They were all getting around them. It was
But
fantastic.
it's what you say, it strikes a chord because it doesn't matter if it's tomorrow or in a few years' time. That doesn't leave.
Yep.
You watching a game of football that 22 players were kicking around the ball.
Yep.
It doesn't leave. It doesn't leave. That feeling doesn't leave. And again, emotions are good.
Absolutely.
Strong, happy emotions, strong, sad emotions are good. What we don't want, what doesn't work, and we're seeing that elsewhere in Australian football, which I won't elaborate today because I've elaborated on it before, is apathy.
Yep.
Not caring.
Yep.
That one you can't deal with. Strong emotions hurt.
Yep.
It's good. Because when you hurt, you care.
Yeah, and that's it. So when you do win something, you really enjoy it. So when you do win the EPL as a Arsenal fan, you'll enjoy after finishing second a lot of the time.
I'll let you know.
You'll let me know.
We'll be there.
Well, I was gonna. Well, I was gonna mention as well, and again, sorry to be controversial, but like, so it was after the France game when the players celebrating on the pitch, and Anthony Albanese and Anika Wells, sports minister, are there, and me and Antonis got some words for them, but just to kind of touch on that a little bit, like they're both in tears. And I actually tweeted this at the time. I said, Albanese, we know, is a massive South Sydney Rabbitohs fan in the NRL. I said, I highly doubt that he's ever cried like that for South Sydney, right? Like, it's just, it's just not a thing that happens. So, and, we're not going to...
No, I will actually.
Okay,
Yeah.
he can. But I'm not going to elaborate too much on funding and what's going to happen now because I know this is more about what happened in the World Cup. But...
No,
yeah,
and I understand what he's saying, but you can't talk about this World Cup without that because Australia is a representative democracy. Okay, in a couple of weeks, we're all gonna go and vote on The Voice because it's a country where we get to represent ourselves. In our parliament, we vote for people to represent us.
Yep.
Now, anything that has 60 to 70% of Australians captivated in 2023, a world full of distractions, shows me people actually care.
Yeah, but are we sure?
Yes.
Hang on. That 60 to 70% were not captivated because Australia's a very patriotic country, and maybe they were just jumping on the bandwagon because it's just. I'm just saying.
Forget that. Let's talk about the most participated grassroots sport there in Australia.
Yeah.
Because
Welcome to Q&A, everyone.
Because those. I'm sorry.
If you want to hear stuff like this, go listen to the Front Page Footall podcast.
No, because I'm not going to speak too long about this, but those two things go hand in hand.
Yeah.
And it's only going to get more and more and more. So anything that gets that support surely should meet the funding. And unfortunately, that's not the case right now.
Just yet.
So that
Hopefully.
needs to be fixed. We're not going to talk about this today. Go read what I wrote.
Yep.
It's there.
All on Front Page Football.
It's very, very, very frustrating.
Yeah, well, you're very passionate, and that's what I love about this game. And, well, let's go back to us being in the media and being involved in it because... we put
Positive stories.
Positive stories.
Yeah, no, it could be a positive. It's
No,
their fault.
I know. We're winding you up, Antonis, but it's good to have. This is the first time I think I've ever had. Yes, it is actually the first time I've ever had two guests in my studio at once. So, we'll be the last, by the way. But no, it's But we talk about us coming from the NPL and doing it in the World Cup. But that first day we saw Tamira's in the press conference here in Adelaide, Antonis. That was the day before the first game, Brazil taking on Panama. You went the day before that and saw Panama training as well. What was that like? They were training at LA United's home base.
Yeah, look, it's one of those things that I had just come back from Malaysia from overseas, and I'd seen the World Cup calendar, and I thought, oh, that's happening. I was a bit iffy, but I was like, I'll go check it out. Well, I went. They were speaking Spanish. They weren't doing any English interviews. But there was only one more journalist crew there, which you met after as well. And one of the presenters, Sol from Panama, got to speak to her a little bit. And it just gave me a real appreciation of just how special that story is. And I ended up writing about that story because I actually got inspired from hearing about it. I was like, my God, this is amazing that they're even here. And I'm sure we'll talk about what happened after.
Well, the next day you introduced me to Sol and her TV crew, her producer and her camera operator. And then we were talking to them and saying hello and welcome and all that after the press conferences. of Brazil and Panama.
Kind of what you're doing.
Yeah, what are you doing next? What are you doing tonight?
Because there was a Brazil training session and a Panama
so we're at Hama Stadium,
Yeah.
and then we're going to go straight to Service FM Stadium, and then
Brazil training session.
and then go to
Martin
for the Panama. And we're going to share a car, me and you, just to save petrol. But
we kind of asked, like, are you guys
we'll see him at Panama
going
Yeah.
to the Panama one? And they said, oh, we'll see how much the Uber costs.
And then the nice guys that we are, we were like, we've got 2 cars, come with us. And then, we...
So much for the saving petrol idea.
Well, at first we thought we'll both sit in the front.
Crazy, bro.
Well, at first, this is my thoughts. I thought we'll both sit in the front, the 3 will sit the back. But I didn't realize they had another camera crew there as well from another station. So they both got together. I'm like, oh, we got 3 others. I'm like, well, we got 2 cars. Let's take you. So we ended up driving people from Panama all the way over to Brazil. We came back to service. Actually, we came back to Highmarsh.
Because we thought
They
Panama
thought-
was doing their
Warm up on the pitch,
which changed.
which they'd already gone to Martin by that point. So you took one team off. I was my team ended up running. I don't know. They were talking in Spanish. I didn't understand a
They were
word.
doing a live cross or something.
So I chased them to find out if I had to take them anywhere, and then they ended up saying that they had to do a live cross back to Panama quickly. So then we quickly jumped in the car, grabbed my car, jumped in, and we went straight meet you at Martin for the next one, because they only let you go in for the first 15 minutes, and they're very strict. But the weird thing is, they don't train at full pelt either. They just
do that
muck
on
around.
purpose, so
Well,
you
yeah,
don't see
yeah.
the important
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, which is really cool. But the thing I loved afterwards, though, is we're about to leave, and they're all talking in their language in Spanish, and I'm like a bit uncomfortable. I'm like, are they talking about me? I don't know what they're saying. And then they'd start laughing, and then they're like, oh,
It's like, blah, 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 blah.
yeah,
Johnny.
my boss at the back said, we'll take you out for dinner to say thank you. I'm like, are you for real? And they're like, ask your friend if you want to come too. And then you, Antonis, you were ready to go to work the next morning.
Because I'm obviously a
like
full-time
9 o'clock at
teacher,
night.
so that's its own sort of thing. But
It was 9 o'clock at night at that point.
And I was feeling very tired, but then you consider, when will I ever spend a day with 2 Panama TV crews at the Home World Cup
Yeah.
and go out for
Yeah.
dinner with them? And I thought, I can
Yeah.
do that.
We're talking to Tony.
Thank God he was there too, because he knows where everything is.
No, I
Thank God
no,
I wasn't
he
there.
took
They
us
asked,
there.
I
there
had
you
to
go.
find a place that was open at 9 o'clock at night in Adelaide on a
Mine wasn't fancy
What
enough.
night was it? A Monday night?
Monday,
Tuesday night?
Monday night.
It was a Monday night in Adelaide. It's not easy. So we ended up going to Tony Tomatoes. They stayed open for us, which was lucky.
It's a great place.
I think they closed at 9 o'clock, and they
Yeah.
just stayed open till 9:30 until we
Even later, yeah.
No, yeah, later than that. Which was
They
great.
were great, yeah.
That was the other thing. Sorry, just about this World Cup is what it did for the economy.
Yeah.
Was huge as well. What it just injected, but just,
I
yeah,
injected a
liberty.
bit of money into that
Yeah.
as well. I think.
Yeah.
with
I
the-
injected plenty.
Oh yeah.
But then the next day, meeting people from Haiti as well.
Don't even worry about Haiti. Yeah, let's talk about that game.
No, but they were in that game though. I'm saying the media were there. They weren't let.
Oh yeah, they came in a little bit early. I forgot about those. two,
Yes,
yes.
and the security wouldn't let them in.
So we helped them in.
Yeah, we helped them out, and we said, "Excuse me, they can come in." I'm like,
Got
no,
a
no,
better
no.
memory than me.
I remember that clearly. And we became good friends with them for
Yeah.
that short period.
But even before we walked in, I remember you had lined that up for a while and you talked about it on Triple M as well. The pre-match, the Brazil pre-match
Yes.
at the Gov.
That was
And
yeah.
you were telling me, come, and I just come from work, and I'm like, I'll try
Nah.
anything, I'll meet you there. And I ended up walking very fast, and I remember my legs killing me, but I reckon that's the best choice
Yep.
I've ever made.
Yeah, that was interesting. I remember, like,
I think that's I pushed it hard.
I'm
yeah,
glad you did.
Brazil. Sorry, the Brazil Panama game, because that was the first game, and thinking like during the day, like, oh yeah, like this would be big. There's gonna be a huge crowd and stuff like that. But then when I go on Twitter and then I see Antonis' video of all the Brazil fans outside the entertainment center, I'm like, oh, all right, what the hell? Yeah,
Yeah,
So-
thousands of them.
First of all, there was just so many in the Gov.
About
I felt
650 minimum.
I felt like I was in Rio, honestly.
Yeah.
I had a long day at work and I'm like, all right, World Cup mode.
I said
Yeah.
this then during the game because they scored 4 goals. They played brilliant, 4-0. And it was actually less people than maybe what you might get, for an Adelaide United Melbourne victory full house. Maybe a couple years ago, maybe not now. But the noise on each goal was like you're in Brazil.
Yeah.
And that was insane because it was kind of like, okay, so Highmarsh is turning into like a stadium in Sao Paulo.
Tamires after the game said it felt like it was their home game.
Yeah.
But even them closing down Port Road, like you're not closing down a little side street.
Yep.
The police closed down the road because
Peak hour as well.
Peak hour.
Actually, you know what? Funny. I'll mention this. This links with our NPL stuff too. Adam Lee and Bruno plays for White City. And on the Tuesday nights where some of the games were scheduled, he'd have training, obviously training White City. And he had to remember on his way back from White City, because he's going back east, across the city, the way he goes home to make sure, I've got to avoid Port Road because it's closed off. So like a lot of people is interesting because that kind of plays into this like not knowing what hits you, that what Antonis is talking about, because
it affects your everyday life.
Yeah,
you know, and that's what it goes back to. I have a friend as well, football person, doesn't follow soccer, is more of the AFL football time, but she thought like home World Cup, I'll get around it. Knows nothing about football, but she rocked up there and she thought, this is special.
Yeah,
she had no clue who Martha was.
Yep,
but she's like, just from being there before she even came, when she got up to warm up, she thought, this one's special. Like this one, people like her. She looked it up and she was like, oh my God, one of the best footballers that's ever existed is playing in my backyard. And I think that's when it hit her and she started figuring out what's going on here is very special. And this is your average Australian. The average Australian that said, you won't know what hit you, not knowing what hit them.
Yeah.
Because it's, you can't put it into words just how special this is, that it's happening to us.
Morocco.
I think,
is the other.
Well, the one thing
I'll talk about quickly the coverage, because between the Brazil game and the China game, in just their countries, they combined for like 100 million viewers.
Yeah.
Hindmarsh Stadium, it's insane.
Yeah,
you know, like,
it's incredible. For me, when I saw Argentina win the Qatar World Cup and seeing them piling out on the streets, I'm like, oh, that's never going to be us. But I didn't think about this World Cup. It was pretty much us at FanFest and all that.
They're coming here. So,
it was pretty unreal, this whole experience. And even Port Road was a miniature version of that, 1,000 people though. But that was something special to see. And then,
just how blessed we were
Yeah.
at the
We're
fixture.
lucky.
We got the champions of South America, the champions of Europe, the champions of Asia. We got France playing here.
Almost got France, Germany.
We almost got France, Germany. We got special moments that we sure will talk about. We got like Morocco's first win, which is the first Arab country to not just appear to win. And this happened here in Adelaide. This is a moment. Morocco will forever be linked with Adelaide. Because that was their moment.
Two of their games,
Well, Panama's very first ever World Cup game was here in Adelaide as well.
You had Lauren James's historic game here.
World Cup finalists here. We had
against China. It's
we're quarterfinalists here in France. We had it's incredible to see what we had here in Adelaide. I think was fantastic. The one thing that made me sad though is at the end of it, how quickly everything just went back to normal. Highmarsh Stadium back to normal. It was very weird. The signs on the street back to normal.
Yeah, and one thing I was just going to say about the media coverage, it was funny, particularly with the Matildas, was there was a period where like every day, front page, like it's just Matildas, simple as that. And it's funny because we always complain as Australian football people. I mean, they don't give us any coverage. Whenever on the whenever in the paper, blah blah. It's 5 pages for AFL, 1 page for soccer, blah blah blah. And then it almost became like boring that the Matildas every day were on the front page. It's like, okay, like we know now. It's like we get it.
It's just one of the things you just can't ignore.
At
one point. I kept saying it. I was just laughing because I could see coming from a mile away. I couldn't put my house on it. That every now and again, one of these mainstream outlets would try and push out some negative rubbish, and I'm just like, it's just funny because usually you have that one night, be it the grand final, be it a Socceroos game, that football outshines you, and you think, oh, we'll just kick them down, just know their place. And for a whole month, you had to keep that same energy. You do not have that same energy. You cannot keep this down.
No,
and that's why I like that every day was us.
I know a lot of people that they were like saying, joking about me being getting into the World Cup and saying, oh, you're making fun of me like being excited for the World Cup. Then by the end of it, I didn't see him for a couple of weeks, And when I got back after the World Cup final, they were like, "Oh, that was great." They're like, "We got behind the Matildas. Oh, I can't wait for the next tournament now."
I work at a school.
Yeah.
You know, a school, middle school, boys' middle school. And again, it is an Islamic school. And it's just one of those cultures that has slowly gotten around embracing the women's side of sports, especially because of many different reasons, like facilities, like modesty, for obvious reasons. So a lot of those boys that grow up don't see these women play. And really, when the World Cup started, there wasn't much excitement. Not much talk about it. More the talk was, oh, who's my Premier League club going to sign? Blah, 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 blah. And I had like year 11 and year 12 and year 10 boys in a couple of weeks in coming to me and saying, "Mister, did you see that goal yesterday? Like, I can't believe women have it like that." You know, that was the actual line of them just going, you just can't miss it, and talking about, "You see that football Brazil played yesterday? Did you see that goal the Panama player scored?" And then them going out the way to engage with that and being so excited that they have a conversation about it. And to see it go from zero interest to that, I'm just like, you know, we win. You know, that's it. You know, and this is our reality now. You know, that we had this coverage for a month. People care, and I hope that continues. But they have seen it happen. It's no longer a concept that we say, you don't know what's going to hit you. It's something tangible we can point and say, this happened. Remember that?
I got a couple things. So first of all, so obviously Antonis works at a school. I work a few days a week at a pub down at Edwardstown. Now, you know, a lot of people know it's probably more of an, you know, very Australian kind of demographic, and it's more of an AFL probably orientated area, right? And what was really interesting throughout the tournament as it went on was walking around, you know, clearing tables and listening to more conversations about, oh, you know, the Matildas and stuff like that. So it kind of plays into what Antonis talking there with how the discourse kind of changed. But it's interesting how you mentioned before, Johnny, about how, you know, it came and it kind of went. And that's the big question now, which hangs on to everything. And we already touched on it with the funding, but it's a big challenge now for, you know, people like me and Antonis, obviously, in media, but, you know, also for the APL and the A-Leagues, for Football Australia, for everyone involved in the game to find a way to make sure that these people who are hooked and basically, you know, hang on to every game, every ball that was kicked, you know, how can we make them not necessarily feel exactly like that for the A-League, or, you know, they don't have to feel exactly like that, but, you know, I will have a look at Adelaide United, and I will, you know, have a gander and have a look and watch when the news comes up and Channel 7 do their one story or whatever on Adelaide United. Yeah, actually, I will listen to it and get an insight into what's going on. So,
For me, and again, if I was the footballing bodies, I'd just say every single one of these Matildas and the ones that weren't picked came from this league. Check it out, number one. Number two, whatever happens, I just go to bed sleeping soundly knowing that for at least one kid, and we're going to hear that story in about a decade's time, when they make the big break, be it with the Matildas, be it with Adelaide United, blah, 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 that we say, yeah, I was at that World Cup and I remember this, and this is what inspired me. Because that's our reality. You saw Marta after she retired saying, I didn't have this. I didn't have these female role models. You know, her nickname in Brazil was Pele in skirts because they didn't have a female footballer to compare with. The next fantastic Brazilian girl that comes up, she's not going to be Pele with skirts. She's going to be Marta number 2. You know, and that's the importance, that seeing that, because you can't be something you can't see or you don't know that exists. And every young girl in this country knows these Matildas. And it's not just girls. It's boys as well. I don't know if you saw Josh Parrish's tweet the other day saying a couple of, at the NPL, a couple of young boys were talking with maybe an uncle or something like that about football. And the boy made an analogy, it's like Steph Catley. And the uncle's like, Steph Catley? Who's Steph Catley? And the boy was just saying, you know who Steph Catley is? Bro, like, what are you doing with your life? Just that moment, it's just like, you know what? Like, this is amazing. You know? This is young boys not just recognizing it, but respecting it enough to ridicule someone that doesn't know it, but to also make it part of their conversation, to respect it. And, you know, for me, and I think it's something Australia needs to get a lot better at, how we talk about our game. not just random, I guess we'll call them Euro snobs, how they
Yeah.
talk, but how us, that we
Yeah.
live and breathe this game, how we talk about it. Because let's have a think, you know, we are a footballing country, call ourselves. Some people may disagree. How many countries went to the round of 16 of a male World Cup, a semi-final of Women's World Cup? How many went to knockouts of both World Cups? I can count them on one hand. Number one.
Morocco.
Exactly, one of them. Okay, that's number one. Number two, it's just mind-blowing that for me, sometimes we don't give it the respect it deserves.
Yep.
That we talk about, oh yeah, this is where we belong in Australian football. No, we don't. We've got some of our girls playing for Arsenal, for Chelsea, for clubs like that.
Yeah.
And also,
this thing I couldn't.
also on the male side of things, we've got at a higher rate than ever, which it feels like it is, we've got our players going overseas to Europe. Nothing mind-blowing yet, but that's how you build. And that's them. Clubs overseas, professional scouts that get paid, seeing our boys and girls and thinking, my club should invest in that. So if they see it, if the professionals see it, we should be able to see it and respect it and talk about it with the respect it deserves. Because let's remove ourselves from the Englands, the Spains, and the blah, blah, blahs. We are at a good spot.
Well,
we just need to take advantage of it.
I'll talk more about the Matildas. Like, the Matildas are a world-class team. Like, you know, and what annoyed me was, like, certain points in the tournament, it's like, oh, so we got France next, you know, in the quarterfinals, and everyone's going, oh, France, you know, like, that's going to be tough. It's like, listen, we got quality.
Yeah.
Like, you know, why are we acting like, so that really annoyed me. And that's something, you know, we could go on about this for hours and hours, but that's the Ange Postecoglou thing, is it's like, why be afraid? You know, why be afraid of anyone, right?
Yep.
You know, it's, you know, play football and do that. But and maybe, you know, Tony Gustafsson probably could have used that approach a bit more, but, you know, again, another podcast. But it was just annoying, the discourse from that point of view.
Absolutely. Well, boys, could talk for ages. But I absolutely love the passion. And that's what probably definitely got you guys to the point where you got to cover a World Cup on home soil. So what a great experience. And one thing we forgot to mention as well is the little gifts that they gave us from Panama.
Oh, yeah.
Mine's right up there in the
It is,
studio.
isn't it?
I've got it in here, a little magnet from Panama,
Yeah,
which is a cool experience.
I'll say this, I did not get a Panama gift because I wasn't there, but it was the other day at work. Someone paid using one of the Australian mints.
Yes,
saw that.
how cool, yeah.
Matilda's gold coin, $1 coin. So I've actually got it in my room. I've kept it. So
Yeah.
It's just that whole Panama experience is the most World Cup experience.
Yeah.
And if the context of World Cup's not there, it's just a story that no one will believe. You know,
Yeah.
it's like, well, how did that happen? World Cup.
If just to finish, my own sort of maybe Panama story. It was when I traveled to Sydney, and I was lucky enough. It was like the referees' day sort of
Yep.
thing. And I was lucky enough to talk to Casey Rybelt, who's a referee here in the A Leagues, Australian referee who refereed at the World Cup. And as I did a quick little interview, and there was another journalist there, who's Swedish journalist, but he was telling me, yeah, I'm like based in Korea and stuff, and you know, and you just think like, wow, what an interesting sort of, you know, life that you would lead then, you know, and you know, you're kind of covering for like an Asian platform and audience, you know, this guy's Swedish and stuff. So, you know, that's what Antonis is trying to say, is that's the World Cup, you know, you just hear all these different,
And
you know,
there's
global
other
stories.
stuff I can talk about as well, which, like you say, you can be here all night, just of the people you speak to and talking about their country and their context and their view on football and their reality. It's just like, I could write a book, you know, like genuinely, it's unbelievable. Words just fail you sometimes, and that's just one of the events that I cannot justify the...
Yeah. You bump into people everywhere. Because when I went to Melbourne, I bumped into the alumni, Matilda's alumni at Ultra Football. Because I caught up with Nicole Blacker from Kick Like a Girl, and we did a little podcast. And then she goes, "Oh, Ultra Football's not far away from my house." So next train I took, got there, walked in, and I saw these Matildas playing. I'm like, wait a minute, that was Leanne Trimboli from Adelaide, and then I saw Emma Checker, and a few others as well, and it was cool, like, bumping into these people. Ended up seeing Moya Dodd that night after the game at the pub at midnight. was going to ask for a photo, but it was a bit too late to. I thought I didn't want to intrude, but bumping into people like this is incredible, and meeting people from Twitter.
Yeah.
But I was
Soccer
gonna,
Twitter.
It's the context of that tournament. And again, I say there's nothing like it. You can give me your Sports World Cup. We're not
of course
in the
That's-
same.
That's an undisputed fact.
Yeah,
like,
it is. But
if anyone's
again,
doubting that now, I mean, you're I don't know what you're doing.
It's there's nothing like it. Nothing in the world like it. I'm sorry, but yeah.
I think everyone listening agrees with you, Antonis. But boys, it's been a great pleasure chatting to you and hearing the experiences from the World Cup. Let's hope we get another one soon. Yeah.
2034 apparently.
Well, hopefully sooner. But boys, enjoy. Hopefully, you get more experiences of covering a World Cup, which I'm sure.
We're back to the NPL and the A-Leagues for now, but it's important because, as I told you before, how we talk about our leagues is the reality of our leagues, and we just need more people to show it the same appreciation and respect. And, you build from the bottom up.
Yep, and I've got to say, our local leagues have better food than what some of the FIFA World Cup games had.
100%.
Because the taco I had in Melbourne was disgusting. It was like a chicken nugget in a wrap and with some coleslaw. That was at the Fan Fest. But our Fan Fest was great food here in Adelaide. But boys, thank you for joining me, Antonis Pagonis and Christian Marchetti from Front Page Footall. Make sure you subscribe to Kicking It Local wherever you get your podcasts so you can get a taste of the SA football community. Plus, follow Kicking It Local SA on Instagram and Twitter so you don't miss any of the action. See you soon.